Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FA Live. My name is Caitlin Brower. I'm your host for FA Live, and I'm also First Advantage's Director of PR, Social Media, and Events. I'm so excited to be here today with no stranger, I feel, to a lot of the things that I'm doing for First Advantage, but First Advantage in general. So I'm super happy. Joy Henry, EVP of Americas, is here, and you can see on the bottom of our screen, we are talking about redefining global hiring, identity, risk, and screening in a new era. So, Joy, thank you so much for joining me today on FA Live. I'd love for you to, take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience and really touch on, I know you've been in background screening for quite some time, so really touching on what drew you to this industry and kind of, what the changes you've seen as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's great to be back. I feel like it's been a minute, so
Yes.
So it's good to be here with you and everyone else. So as you mentioned, I'm the EVP of Americas here at First Advantage, and I look after quite a few industry verticals. We're organized in verticals so that we make sure that we're focused on our customers anywhere and everywhere we can possibly be and get to know them. And so my teams look after verticals like financial services and professional services, technology, media, entertainment, as well as staffing and retail, consumer gigs. So we've got a really nice wide swath of customers that we work with. And it's funny how I ended up in background screening. I never thought I would be in background screening.
I don't know if I did either.
Right, like I didn't even really think about it. But I ended up here because I followed colleagues and leaders that I really respected from previous roles that I worked with. And 13 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And I actually really love it because it's constant change. We're constantly trying to inject innovation into the tech that we have and the processes and how we work with our customers in order to solve the never-ending list of challenges that they face every day. So it's been a pretty fun ride for the last 13 years.
And we'll definitely tap into some of the changes that we've seen and kind of current state for background screening right now. But I do love that you touched on the fact that, nothing is ever the same. So since we've launched FA Live since April, I've had a couple of seasoned employees on that have been in the industry for quite some time. And everyone has the same kind of sentiment that you have shared, that there is always something new and there's always ways for us to be better. And I'm happy to have you here today because we'll definitely touch into those areas of how we are expanding, getting bigger, and everything like that.
Sure.
So I want to take the time, if you're watching live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, if you have any questions for Joy throughout the episode, you can go ahead and put them in the comment section across all three of these platforms, and I will get them over to her as I see fit. We'll kick off the conversation today, though, with market trends and industry shifts. So as you outlined, a lot of industries under your belt. Your team is looking after many different groups here. So what are you currently seeing? And what are some macro trends that are maybe shaping hiring right now?
I think since the pandemic, employers have really evaluated the size of the workforce as well as where they can find the best talent around the world. And so we're seeing countries like Poland and regions like LATAM come alive in more recent years, as well as traditional markets like India, the Philippines, and obviously the US still continuing to thrive. I think when I think about how the macros are affecting how we're working with customers and how customers are thinking about how they're going to hire and how they're actually going to grow as organizations, I think, we used to really spend a lot of time talking about companies' 3 and 5 year plans and how we map into those strategic long games that they're playing. And we still have those conversations, but we're also having conversations about the short and medium time frame strategies. Just because the world is changing what feels like sometimes daily. There's a lot of world events that are happening, political landscape, economic landscape. And so they're trying to insert a lot of flexibility and nimbleness into strategies. And for some of these large global organizations that we work with, it's not easy to turn the ship really quickly. And so it's really important for them to have a plan A, B, and C to make sure that they can show up for their employees and their customers in the right way, regardless of what's happening around the world. I think the other thing that we are seeing is a dramatic jump in organizations implementing digital identity verification, as well as post-hire monitoring. So all of the conversations that we have with customers, regardless of what vertical our customers reside in, we're having conversations about one or both of those in every conversation now. I think there's a renewed focus on knowing exactly who you're hiring when you hire them, and making sure that they maintain good standing as they enter the organization and stay with the organization. But also, customers are really thinking a lot more about brand reputation and the impact and effect that a single employee can have on that brand in the market these days.
Yeah, it's very important for these organizations to look in the mirror and see, you know, what makes sense for their business, who makes sense for our business, and to see those solutions come to life and really help, you know, it is critical. We do talk about it a lot, and we'll definitely dive into digital identity in much more detail on this episode. But I do wonder, you know, going back to the vast amount of industries that your team cover, you know, you look at high volume like staffing or gig. How is it differing from more of the regulated areas you look at, similar to like financial services and professional services?
So the obvious thing is high churn in those high volumes. So they've got high turnover in positions. And, you know, while it is still very much a churn type of business, we are seeing people stay in jobs in retail and staffing longer than maybe they would have traditionally. But definitely higher number of background screens, because there's just more people coming through their application and onboarding process. And in that high volume space, time is very much money. Think about how a staffing firm makes money. It's how fast they can get an individual into a placement. And so speed is critical. And so thinking about the technology and all the investments that First Advantage has done over the course of its existence, you know, we're certainly very well positioned to drive really fast, efficient turnaround times for our customers. But of equal value to these organizations is the quality of the check. They want to make sure that those people meet the standards, but they want us to do it quickly and efficiently. Whereas when you think about technology sectors or the financial services sector, you know, they have an interesting dynamic happening there, where those two industries are actually competing for a lot of the same talent. So we're watching financial services firms lean into technology. You see articles all over the place today about how they're using AI to drive improvements, both internally and externally for the firms. And so they're hiring more tech resources than they ever had, which is requiring them to transform how they attract and interview and onboard those types of employees. And it's inspiring the tech space to really lean in on the brands and lean in on the experience and market culture and what it's like to work at these firms. So their screens are both very thorough. They're much more global in nature, but they still want them fast and compliantly and efficiently. That's certainly the theme, regardless of what industry you work on.
Yeah, always fast. It always just comes up at some point. Got to be quick. But listen, regardless of that time to hire, that how many hires, you know, or the longer, you know, background screening process, what I'm taking away from what you're saying, which will go into our next topic, is these people are looking to hire the best. And sometimes, like you had said, these industries are now competing with one another to bring specific talent in the door. So how do we bring this right talent into the door? We tap into a lot of technology and solutions that an organization like First Advantage has. So I said we'd circle back, but we will dive into digital identity a little bit more now. So we are seeing still that rise of remote and international hiring. How are you seeing right now these screening practices shift? And then are you thinking, are we becoming a little bit more proactive than reactive right now?
I think that with a lot of the recent headlines around deepfakes coming out of North Korea and managing to get behind the the protective barriers that a lot of organizations have had up for a long time, we are seeing more and more customers take a more proactive approach to making sure that they are bringing the right individuals into the organization and making it even more difficult for bad actors or people with ill intention in sort of getting past that front wall there.
Well, that's the growing concern. It is that identity fraud. It are those headlines that you're talking about right now. So specifically to technology and then professional services, how are these organizations mitigating that risk that we are seeing current state?
So the amount of synthetic identity that is coming through the onboarding process for these organizations is at the highest levels many of them have ever seen. And so the idea that you want to do a digital identity verification, regardless of where you are in the world, and making sure that you are in the right place in the world that you say you're in is becoming more and more important. So a lot of these organizations are implementing digital identity checks throughout the onboarding process. When we first started having these conversations about identity, First Advantage driving innovation into the market, oftentimes we're talking about an identity check at the time of backgrounds. And now we're talking about identity checks before each interview, at offer, and even first day of work. And we are even talking to some customers about almost like a random ID check program across their employee base where they reserve the right to go back and make sure you still are who you were when you showed up on the first day. So there's all different ways that you can implement these, and depending on the technology that the firms are using, we've been able to couple up onto their onboarding programs and support this need. I think the other thing that's really important to call out in this space is that we've seen a shift where everyone across the organization assumes responsibility in keeping the organization safe, its employees safe, and protecting its valuable assets, including their customers. So, we have, I think, done a good job of evolving as their needs have evolved and met them where they are.
A comment you had made earlier was the fact around no matter where you are in the world. So whether you're going through the process, whether you're hiring in certain spots. So I'd like to take our conversation there next to tap more into, global background screening a little bit more. So for those watching, that maybe are looking to expand globally, maybe they already have been started. What are some common misconceptions that you feel companies have when it comes to global background screening?
The biggest one, it popped into my head immediately as you asked me this question, is that there's a single set of rules that can be implemented around the world. I think that it started with the best intention, and it is the intention of really standardization and making sure that you're holding employees at large at the same standards and expectations, regardless of where you sit in the world. But I believe that there is a different way or a better way to do that based on where we've seen our customers implement strong, effective global programs. And so instead of a set of rigid requirements that don't necessarily translate into different regions around the world, what we've seen customers do successfully is create a framework where it creates guideposts for regions around the world to work within, because what is equally as important to standardization is also regional influence and what that program looks like, as well as what the candidate experience feels like. And for anyone who does international business around the world, that there are certain cultural expectations in certain parts of the world that are very different from other parts of the world. And if you're going to have a program that attracts and keeps the excellent talent that you want in your pipeline, you have to be able to implement that into that overall program. So a set of rigid rules doesn't allow for you to create the experience and then ultimately reflect the company's brand.
Well, as a follow-up question, and to go along the topic of kind of like those rigid rules and maybe how that's not really the set value for everyone, how are you finding that these organizations are balancing that need for consistency, but also the need to localize their programs as well?
It does go back to that framework. It goes
Yeah.
back to really having strong corporate values that they can tie into. It goes back to making sure that they have a clear view of what the regional hiring plans are so that they can manage their pipeline appropriately from a talent perspective. And then working really closely with us to make sure we understand that. Because if
Yeah.
we can understand where you're going with those sort of key pillars to your global approach, then we can make some best practice recommendations on what type of criminal searches make the most sense that meet the framework requirements, but also create the right kind of experience for the candidates. We talk a lot about the language that we use, the order that we present things in. It may not make sense to do it the same way in Poland that we do in New York. And so we want to make sure that we're also layering in the regional nuances there. The last thing I would say is that, and it kind of sounds a little contradictory, but in order for organizations to have consistency in a global program, you actually have to treat the program as a living, breathing program. The world changes really quickly. We're seeing background screening outside of the US evolve quickly. The technology that customers are using continuously evolving fast. And so this is certainly not a set it and forget it type of program. No background screening program should. But for global in particular, for global organizations, you want to revisit that constantly and often and make sure that it's representing what you want it to represent in each region of the world.
Are there any other success factors you would add in aside from building out that framework, looking at the candidate experience, and then kind of just like revisiting and reevaluating? Like, what else does a successful program look like?
Those are hard words to tie together.
That's really what this. I can't do successful. I say it on every episode too. I will say, and it'll never get better.
Okay, we all have the word. I think I would probably add to the list to stay educated from a compliance perspective. Like I said, the world is changing, and while it's still big, it feels very small in some parts of the world, and there's a lot of similarities and tremendous difference in the way things are happening around the world today compared to even 12 months ago. And so staying educated and also developing internal communication strategies to make sure that the human capital groups have a way to educate their internal customers, those hiring managers, to set the right expectations and understand what to expect for their particular region. Those I think are also equally as important so that you can create partnership between you and the partner that you choose to do your global screening, but also those internal customers, which is extremely critical.
So we definitely did touch a lot around the consistency, the scalability. But one more point I'd like to just ask you a question on, just to get a little bit more information, because just tapping into it a little bit further, because we've talked around like solutions, like identity fraud, kind of that, what the different looks like if I'm making a global program. But you had mentioned just briefly earlier around things like laws and regulations that might be impacting it too. So how are these evolving local laws and expectations impacting background screening?
In some cases, it's speeding it up. So we're seeing there's some parts of the world that are recognizing the value of a thorough background check and are evolving in ways to create a better experience for the candidate, but B, also just faster results. And then we still have some countries around the world where you have to print out a piece of paper and sign it with a pen and put it in an envelope and mail it somewhere. And so we want to make sure that you're working with someone who's on top of those and is leveraging where it can get faster or more efficient or just frankly feel better that you're working with an organization that has the global scale to support that and implement that and integrate that into their offerings very quickly. And then also just think about ways to interact with the candidate and create really good candidate workflows that present that form that they have to go print out and mail in an efficient way as well. So I think that there's absolutely an importance in that. And I think one of the things you've heard me say at least, I would say 10 times in the 20 or so minutes that we've been talking is that candidate experience and staying really close to that and understanding how it feels and looks around the world will then create that scalability and consistency that most organizations are looking for.
Yeah. So I think a good segment into our next part, someone actually did write on LinkedIn that they feel a big success factor is rescreening on a quarterly and a half-year basis. So I'm going to use this as a segue into our next section, talking about customer support, because First Advantage can step in and help you decide if that is the right thing for your program. So shout out to whoever commented that, because it was a beautiful segue into my next part here. With that experience and support, so what are some of the biggest challenges customers are facing when implementing a global screening program, and how do we step in there to help?
So I think the first thing is getting global alignment internally on the customer side, that this is in fact a global program and we're all in it together. We agree on the framework and understand what it means for each region. I would say that is the biggest challenge is helping people understand how to meet those requirements, but allow them to still feel authentic and unique in their regions. With that comes communication and also expectations around how slow or fast to implement global programs. We have seen in our experience the most successful ones go by region, and that allows the organization as well as us really dig in and partner and focus with those regional teams on understanding what they're excited about, understand what they feel may be challenges, and hitting those head on so that things move efficiently and effectively. And I think the last thing is around technology, where we have organizations that are leveraging different ATSs around the world or different tech stacks around the world, making sure that we've got really solid plans around those. But the trend that we're really seeing is that customers are looking to streamline. So we are a part of a move to a single ATS around the world. And so also working with them through that change management is it's hard. It's a lot of work and there's a lot at stake. And so making sure you're working with a good partner throughout that is, I think, absolutely critical.
It is hard. I know it's one of the hardest topics that we discuss as well, because week after week, when I'm doing these episodes and other content that we're creating, I know people are reading it and I know they're watching and they're probably curious and would like to explore partnerships with First Advantage, but that implementation process is in the back of their head. Like, wow, this is such a massive thing that my organization's going to have to do. So with that in mind and, addressing that, we understand it's a hard topic and something that we all have to kind of rally behind. Can you provide just a little bit more detail about how your team steps in to make sure that process is smooth from onboarding to implementation?
Yeah, I think the first thing is we've done a few of these.
Yeah.
So, we have a lot of lessons learned and bring to the table a lot of best practices. But more importantly, we have a tried and tested and proven methodology that we approach when we are working through onboarding plans with customers. We have step-by-step guides. We are super transparent in where we are in the process through project plans that are live and customers and the First Advantage teams are in and updating and have access to the same information all of the time. But I think the other thing that is really important is that we ask a lot of questions. We're very curious. And part of that is we don't believe in sort of picking up what you're doing over here and putting it down on the First Advantage side of the house when you become a customer. What we believe is that it's our obligation to give you the best offerings that we have and to make sure that you get the best out of us. So we ask a lot of questions around why. Why do you feel that's the best way to do this? Have you talked to peers? Is it clear that they are doing it because in our experience, they're doing it this way?
Yeah.
Or celebrating where they're in line with best practices and based on how we see their peer groups across our large customer base conducting or implementing their background checks as well. So there's this tried and true process with really clear milestones, a lot of transparency, a lot of questions. But the other thing is we try and bear the brunt of this as much as possible. So we ask a lot of questions, we document things, and we ask our customers to then validate what we've learned to make sure that we heard what you said appropriately. And then partner as we step through that onboarding process to validate that we continue to hear what our customers share with us. And that's really important because we've also seen and worked with a lot of customers who have worked with other partners who I think make some assumptions, and then programs go live and it's not doing exactly what the customer thought it was doing. And those are unfortunate conversations I think that can be avoided. And I think that our implementation teams do an excellent job of asking the questions and being very curious.
Yeah, and I must say, I love your comment and the practice that the team does of not only just asking questions and trying to identify new opportunities, but really celebrating and calling out areas that are already that's it. That's the best practice. That's the standard we're seeing, say, in the technology industry. So I really like that twofold approach there, because again, it really just helps take whatever it's a existing customer or new customer, their program to the next level and just constantly making it better, like we're trying to do.
Well, I think our scale and size allows us to actually do that, right? Like statistically, we have enough exposure to see what works and what doesn't work and what has proven successful. So we can walk in with data behind it to support all of the recommendations that we make to, which I think is important.
Absolutely. So we're done with implementation here. So let's talk about that ongoing support now that companies get specific to your group as you are differentiating across industries. So I'm a fast moving gig company versus a financial institution. Kind of how does that customer support look like for both? Those are just two examples there, but.
So I think it's one of the things that makes us most different in the market. We really understand that size and scale helps customers when we think about speed and access to data, and frankly, sometimes price. You get economies of scale benefits from working with an organization like ours. But we still wanted to create the very boutique feel that represents that experience that you would expect based on the type of screening that you're doing and the type of candidates that you attract into your industry. So if we think about, I'll use your two examples, fast moving gig, organization. They work with our solutions engineers on a daily basis. There's a lot of technology calls talking about innovation they're trying to implement into their platforms to attract more platform users and really want to leverage things like our API and how to leverage identity verification to make sure that the communities that they're creating are safe, good communities for their customers and the people that participate on the platform. They're very much about speed, and they're also very much about controlling things like geographic locations. And so the types of people that we have working with our gig customers are tech-oriented. They understand the impact of time on the tech space and the customers' platforms themselves. They understand the large geographic areas and what it's like to try and get a background check done really quickly. And a lot of it is predominantly criminal-based. It's data-based, so it's quick, it's fast, it's almost instantaneous results because of a lot of the tech enablement that we have on our platforms. And then if you were to swing the pendulum all the way to the other side and talk about financial services, we're talking about large regulated organizations that have expectations from all the regulators that you pick an acronym, they're probably accountable to them. And so the expectation is that you know criminal history, that you know employment history and education history from people who are all around the world. And they attract people from all around the world to work in other parts of the world. And so the folks that work within our financial services space understand global background screening and can educate customers on what it's like to try and get an individual through the background screening process in Japan, which is very different from going through the background screening process in California, which is very different from Florida or Canada. And so understanding those nuances and being able to talk strategically about how to manage that as an organization and get the best out of the platforms is a key difference there. That was a really long answer. I hope it was a good one.
It was a great answer, because my goal for these episodes is that someone is watching behind the screen right now and a light bulb just went off and they were like, that is me. That is what I need. And I think everything you just provided is going to hit that audience of like, yes, it is exactly what I'm looking for in a partner. And anything I could do to help execute. So wonderful, wonderful answer there. And we did get a question in on LinkedIn, and it actually, I think it ties to my next question. So I will say the question is, how are we like making sure that customers are kind of following these best practices and examples? Well, the reality is that we can't make you follow these best practices. We will help. But the question that I was going to next for you was our approach to education. Yeah. So can we kind of tie those two questions together?
We can. So there's a multi-channel approach, I will say. The first is through the customer success team. You have a group of individuals, like I said, who are very focused on those industries and are sharing compliance updates and platform updates and regional updates with our customers. We also have that information available in all of the right places within the platform and website and newsletters and things like that we can get you subscribed to. So if you're not subscribed to those, and you are an existing customer, please ask your customer success rep to help you get subscribed to those so that we can keep you up to date there. But we don't stop there. We also do webinars and FA Live like this in order to pick the hot topics, to make sure that we're out and create forums for customers to ask questions and get educated that way. We also do something that we call leadership council. So on a quarterly basis, we invite industry-specific customers together, and our customers drive the agenda and topics often. And we bring subject matter experts in to talk about those topics, as well as use those types of forums for product development feedback and allowing them to inform the product roadmap. And then last is your customer success teams that you work with oftentimes will invite you to or ask for business reviews. So we'll come in, we would love to come in quarterly. We'll come in as often as you let us, frankly, but at least quarterly to talk about your program specifically, dig into your metrics, and then apply best practices, do peer comparisons across other customers that we work with, to create program recommendations on ways that we think we can enhance what you're doing today. Make sure you're leveraging the best technology and products from us.
I love our multi-avenue approach to education because, for starters, we're not just hitting one audience, we're hitting multiple with multiple different topics across different industries. So we need that, multi-avenue approach. No bias. I do like the ones like FA Live a little bit more, maybe because I'm spearheading it, but I'll take on webinars and social media too. Love all three of those. But I will say, and I've been touting this for a very long time, wherever I can, specifically at things like Collaborator here on FA Live. I love our leadership councils. I think it's one of the most unique things that First Advantage does. And I think it's something too that we can really brag about, to have our customers behind the scenes kind of running that and really wanting to sit down with one another and talk. Yeah. So again, love the multi-avenue, definitely love those two out of everything there. But
you did a great job on Collaborate this year. I should have mentioned that. So
Yes.
No omission on purpose there, I promise.
That's something else we talk about on like almost every episode. No bias, no bias. There's another thing. But it's totally fine. We do mention it a lot. And as we rev up to 2026, we'll be talking about it much, much more. I do want to pause real quickly. Again, if you are watching live on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, get your final questions in here because I only have a couple of final thoughts here with Joy left for the episode. So as we wait for any final questions to come in from our audience, just some final takeaways here. I just have some 2 wrap-up questions for you, Joy. So what advice would you give to companies, maybe they're watching right now, watching on demand, that are looking to build a scalable, future-ready background screening strategy?
Well, the first one is to make sure you're working with the right organization to do that. So, global scale means more than just being able to run a background check, but do you have people in the right parts of the world in order to support my program? Those are questions that you should be asking your background screening provider. If the answer is no, then I would question the ability to scale, really scale, and really understand regional nuances and be able to truly advise on the best ways to do things in different parts of the world. The other thing is, again, treat these programs like living, breathing programs within the organization. Expect them to change. Expect them to evolve, want them to change and evolve with the world and the different options that your provider should be offering to you. We are almost always adding new ways to complete a background check, new ways to get to forms that candidates need to get to in different parts of the world. So I would say, working with an organization like ours, you're going to be presented with what we believe, based on our 190 million background screens a year expertise, is the best way to get a global program done. The other thing is to be open to the challenge of status quo. Ask it of yourselves all the time. Expect your providers to come with ideas and insights in order to stay up on the latest and greatest. And the last thing I would say is do evaluations on the technology that you're using around the world to make sure that it supports your organization as you plan to grow.
A lot of great advice there for sure. Quick little trip to the future, 6 to 12 months from now. Is there anything that you're keeping an eye on?
Probably the same thing that everyone else is, which is AI.
Yeah.
And how that plays into not just how we work and how we do things, because we believe in automation with human in the loop is a critical opportunity for us to continue to evolve and be innovative, but also watching how customers in the financial services space or the professional services space are leveraging AI and its impact on the types of people that they will need to hire within their organizations, and really kind of watching this unfold really fast has been quite interesting, and will continue to be, I think.
Yeah. You and many others, including myself and probably many at First Advantage, keeping an eye on AI, and maybe we will have some episodes in the future tapping into it a little bit more. At this time, we don't have any further questions coming through, and those were my final 2 questions for you. Anything final that you'd like to just leave our audience with today?
If you're an existing customer, I just want to say thank you very much for your business, and thanks for hopping on here today. And for those of you that I know, it's nice to see you, or hopefully nice to see me. Maybe I can't see you. But sincerely, thank you for your business. We really do value the relationships and partners that we have around the world. For those of you that are exploring, we're here. We'd love to be a consultative partner. And over the next, I would say 12 to 24 months, and really forever, but as I talk to our technology and product teams, I'm really excited about some of the things that we've got planned. So please stay tuned and watch some of the cool innovation that we're going to bring to the market soon.
Absolutely. And as Joy said, we are always here to start a conversation. You can reach out to us in many different areas, like our website. You can reach out to us on social media. We're all here. These FA Live episodes are a great, entryway into starting that discussion. So always feel free to reach out. I think our next episode is next Wednesday, August 13th. You might have to check me on that, but I do think it's then. But we're going to wrap up the summer with a couple of more episodes and then look forward to the fall where we'll have many, many more. But as always, I'd like to thank our audience for joining us live or on demand. And Joy, again, thank you for joining me on this episode. I thought it was a great one today.
Well, thank you. It was good to be back.
Oh, yes. And you'll be back for many more. So you've opened up the floodgates. Yes, I love it. And I love this episode. Love everything FA Live. Thanks everyone for joining, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.